All right, Coach, last year's team exceeded a lot of expectations, maybe not yours, but preseason rankings. They finishing with the second highest win total in program history and ending the season in what is effectively the NSIC semifinals. You only graduated a handful of players, so you knew the core of this team was returning. What was the message that you left the team with after the final out in 2015?
Building upon what we just accomplished, and then understanding that our last game wasn't the location that we wanted our last game to be, and I think understanding that we did have a lot of guys coming back, that expectations should be raised, and so that was something that I think that they went ahead and communicated, I think, amongst themselves without even me really touching on it very much. So I think I was really proud of the guys as far as how they handled that situation at the end of the year, and then turning the page and raising expectations for the program this year.
Speaking of expectations, UMD has had preseason recognition as a team, receiving votes in the CBN poll and ranking number 23 in the nation in another poll. Alex Wojciechowski was the NSIC preseason player of the year, and he and Jimmy Heck were named preseason All-Americans. Specifically, those two, what can you say about their careers so far and what impact they can have in their senior season?
I think ultimately you look at Jimmy Heck. He's a guy that's gotten better and better, I think, offensively every year that he's been here. I think the defensive change last year that we made for him, I think, helped as well. And so he really flourished, I think, last spring, making a move to second base, and offensive numbers really jumped. But proud of him for, I think, handling the situation as far as making those adjustments defensively, and then also offensively, paying attention to details and how he needed to make himself better. So building upon his junior year, the recognition, I think, based on his performance junior year, kind of rolled into this year. And so we expect him to be a mainstay in that middle of that offensive lineup, and really be, I think, a consistent force, for us there at that spot. So we're excited for him. Alex Wojciechowski, he's been pretty darn consistent once he's been in the offensive lineup his freshman year, and so I think we're looking for the same from him this year, and not asking too much of him. He doesn't have to be, I think, a whole lot better than what he has, knowing that I think the benefit that we have this year is that we've got experience up and down the lineup, and we've got talent up and down the lineup. So it's really going to be an exciting year, I think, for those two guys to just go out and play and have fun, and let their physical abilities take over.
They're just two members of a nine-member senior class for this squad. Much of that group has been here for 4 years. When you look at their growth in this program and the growth of the program during their stay, what does that group mean to this team and to you as a coach?
A lot. I think when we talked about where we want to be at the end of the year this year, it really started maybe 4 years ago when they stepped on campus. I remember distinctly having a conversation with that group of recruits and indicating to them what my expectations for them as a group, and to really, I think, see some of those expectations kind of unfold, I think, in their time here has been special to me, and I think that those guys really value the opportunity that they've been given, I think, from a true freshman standpoint, and having an impact throughout their years here. You talk about 9 seniors, that is something that we're definitely going to rely on heavily throughout the years, just the experience and the maturity that they have in not just playing, but also leading the remaining group of guys, in our program. It's very exciting to know that you have 9 seniors that are going to make a really, I think, an important impact into this year's team, and ultimately have the ability to leave the program in a much better state than when they first came here. So very proud of them, and excited to see what their legacy is going to be here.
All right, so this lineup will look a little different this year. You lost Bo Goff and John Meyer to graduation after they played a significant number of games for you last season. Among the returners, besides maybe the obvious ones of Wojo and Heck, who else has impressed already this spring that may be a standout in 2016?
Well, we've got, I think, stability in the middle of the lineup with Grant Farley and Kyle Comer. Spencer Diedrich also being a senior. Got some at-bats, some quality at-bats, maybe towards the second half of the year last year. We expect him to be building upon that experience, as a senior this year. And we look at maybe some other guys that we're expecting to kind of step in. Marco Lucarelli behind the plate. We feel as though that he's ready to maybe be the #1 catcher. I think this year he spent some time throughout the year with when we talk about Bo Goff, and so I think transitioning him to being a little bit more of a prominent role back there at the catching position is going to be important for us. And then also a transfer, Don DeFeo, back there being able to eat up some innings, and a true freshman, Ben Danielson, at the catching position. We talk about other guys in the lineup. Shortstops, we've got Brian Pierce and Kyle Hoffman that have both had good falls in early winter and springs. I think Kyle Hoffman has really stepped up his game, I think, from last year to this year, so it's exciting to see his development, and looking forward to his consistency when we start playing games. We look at the outfield position, going to have probably a couple new guys eating up a few more innings. We got a transfer in Brett Milazzo that we expect to have an opportunity early in the year to earn a starting position in center field. He's going to add another element to our offensive lineup as far as being a speed guy. So we're very excited to have his, I think, skill set in there somewhere, hopefully at the top of the lineup.
Then as far as the pitching staff goes, you obviously have Bo Hellquist, who's been at the top of this rotation for 2-3 years now. Austin Baskey and Nick Dorfman were voted UMD's Newcomers of the Year a season ago. West Milezova put together one of the better seasons this program has seen as an ace reliever last year. The NSIC has no shortage of great hitters for them to face, though. So how has the staff looked so far, and what can they do to take the next step as a staff?
I think ultimately you hit on some really good names there. Another one that comes to mind that I think was really important till the tail end last year from a bullpen side of things is Matt Mattiacci. He's a senior that is, I think, from a coaching staff standpoint, a really solid individual that gives us some stability when we go to the bullpen. Kevin Stockey, being a starter last year, I think has really improved, I think, overall as a pitcher when we look at the transition from last year to this year. Nick Dorfman, we're expecting to ultimately eat up a bunch of innings as well. You talked about Austin and Bo. Austin is very good, right along with Bo, so we feel, if we had a situation to roll out and compete in 2 games, having those 2 guys at the top end to start our games out on the mound, we feel very confident no matter who we're playing there. So that's an awesome situation to be in. Marcus Fredrickson saw innings last year. Tommy Hansen has had a very good fall and winter and early spring here. We expect him to be, I think, a contributor, a little bit more contributor than he was last year, along with Alex Ferguson. So I know there's other guys there, but ultimately we're looking at the depth of our pitching staff to be a strength of ours this year, and probably a little bit more experienced than we probably have been in the past. And so for those guys to take the step forward, I think it's handling situations on a consistent basis, and I think any coach would probably say that. But we feel good about the skill set that they have right now entering in the spring.
All right, and despite a big group of seniors, you already have a big group of newcomers as well. I think for my count it was 3 transfers and 13 freshmen that are competing for spots right now in the early spring. You've named a couple names, but has anybody else stood out for you that might make an impact on this team in its first go-around? Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how I think the early games play out. The benefit that we have is that we're not counting on a first-year player coming in right away and having to be a major starter, in the offense or on the pitching side of things. So that's a luxury this team has. But I think as the season unfolds, we're going to see a few guys. I think in the name in the lineup, offensively and on the pitching mound, I think Ryan Cunningham, a local product out of Virginia, Minnesota, has shown very well fall and early, here this year, and so we expect to get him in some point in time early in the season, I think, on the mound. And Jeremy Thorson also is a freshman pitcher that has shown well, but we're talking about consistency. We're going to want those guys to continue to back it up, and we still got some more practices for those guys to earn spots that they may be, right now the coaching staff may be counting on them for them to be able to handle. Offensively, Corey Krolikowski, along with Tyler Wojciechowski, Eric Yatnich. Those are some guys that kind of come to mind, I think, initially on the offensive side of things as first-year players that I expect to probably continually to earn some opportunities early on in the year. And what they do with those opportunities will dictate how many times their name is in the lineup as we get into conference play.
All right. As far as that non-conference schedule goes, it seems like had a few more in-region meetings penciled in Last year, this team was on the cusp of cracking the regional tournament, but it seemed like it ended up being a numbers game as UMD played fewer in-region games than a lot of the teams. Was that a conscious effort to put in more in-region games just for that reason, or did it just kind of work out that way?
Both. I think there's some situations that allowed us the opportunity to seek out in-region opponents, and then when you get into our spring break trip down in Florida, there's not a whole lot of I think coordinating from a coach's standpoint as far as who your opponents are. But we know when we do take that trip that there's an opportunity to play a few games that will count in region, and so we're happy to see that. I think the big thing for us is knowing that we've got a Division II schedule, that every time we roll out a lineup that we're playing a quality opponent, that we need to win those games no matter who it is, and that'll give us an opportunity hopefully at the end of the year going into the NCAA regional to be a participant in there, and then have an opportunity to let the chips fall where they may. But we think that we have an opportunity to advance very far in the national tournament, given the opportunity, earning the opportunity to do that.
All right. Well, the NSIC the past few years has consistently had two big dogs at the top. UMD competed with both of them last year, that being St. Cloud and Minnesota State, who you beat twice in the regular season. Augustana and UMD are kind of in the mix right after them, according to preseason polls, for what you can glean from them.
Yeah.
Do you think this team is getting deserved respect, and what does this team have to do this season to take that next step to be in the regional tournament picture and maybe beyond?
Okay. When you talk about preseason rankings, it's the perception of how you did last year that really kind of sets up the preseason rankings. And so, I think talking as a program, talking about this year's team, it's about having a new year and establishing our path, and this year's path with the team, and this team's identity, and that not to get too caught up in what other people perceive you to be, because our play will dictate those things when it's all said and done. And I think that the opportunity is there for us to stay focused, knowing that I truly believe this is probably the most mature group that I've ever had, in my 10 years of coaching, being the head coach here, that they've handled the challenges that we put forward to them and handled them, I think, with maturity. And so that gives us, I think, some calm going into the year as a coaching staff, that we feel as though no matter what comes to us, that we're going to be able to handle those situations. And I think when you talk about wanting to be in the conversation at the end of the year, consistency. I think consistency with play, building upon the successes that we had last year and being even more consistent this year. Because I think anyone can look back, any of our team members can look back on last year and learn some things about maybe instances that we weren't as consistent as we needed to be. But we definitely took a huge step forward, as a program last year into to having that be probably second nature as far as the competitive aspect of our program.
All right, that's all I got for you. Thanks, Coach, and we'll wish you good luck this season.
Thank you.